Good afternoon, everyone. This is Chris Linenberger with the Texas Homeless Network, and my clock says 2 p.m. So we are going to get started with our monthly Bloc Talk webinar. So welcome to 2016. I know it has been a few months since we have done our last Bloc Talk, and so we're very excited to be back in the year 2016, or be here in the year 2016. And we're looking forward to a year of having these monthly sessions to really have great discussions around housing best practices that are happening around the state of Texas. So I wanted to welcome all of you to our webinar, and thank you for being here. As you guys know, I love my memes, and so the meme for this month is this one right here with the dog stating roses are gray, violets are gray, of course, in memory to Valentine's Day that just happened. I hope everybody had a great holiday of sorts, and whether you're with someone or not, that you had a lovely time. So just remember that dogs only see in black and white, so I guess they really can't observe Valentine's Day the way we do. Anyhow, just a little bit of humor for you guys. So this month for our February Bloc Talk, we will be actually spotlighting one of the veterans programs, housing programs in El Paso, Texas. So the agenda for today, briefly, is we will cover, as usual, some housekeeping and announcements that we have as an agency. And then we will move down to the presentation spotlight on the Veterans Lodge in El Paso. From there, we would love to present our individuals that are talking about this housing option or discussing this housing to any questions that you have. So the goal of this webinar is really to allow you guys to ask some real-time questions, and we want to give you guys, or we're offering you guys, the venue for that to happen. So we'll have about 10 to 15 minutes of question and answer, depending on how many questions we have. And then at the end, we will do a close, and there will be a follow-up email that will directly pop up, either email or kind of a web pop-up with an evaluation, so that you can fill that out for us and we can get some feedback for you guys. And I do have a slight delay on the slides here, I understand that, so I'll be working with around that. So just so you know, all of you guys out there, that your microphone is muted. We do this just because typically on this webinar we have anywhere from 10 to 110 people on these webinars, and if you have just a few and somebody forgets to mute their mic and somebody walks in their office and starts talking to them, it can be very distracting for myself and for the presenters. So we just go ahead and mute everybody. And therefore, when it comes time for you to ask questions, and if you have questions during the process of this presentation, there is a questions box over to your right-hand side in your little toolbox, and so just pop in there, type in your question, and it will go ahead and fill in, who asked it, and it'll send it to me. If it's a question I can ask, like if it's about the webinar, such as volume's too high or too low or whatnot, I can answer that. If it is for our presenters, then we will wait until that appropriate time after their presentation to ask them that question. So just to let you guys know, you can ask questions at any point in time. Matter of fact, we really, really want you guys to ask questions. And so feel free to use that. Also, just so you know, in case you do have to leave early, or in case you really like this webinar and you want to view others, or have maybe a coworker view this one, or coworkers, we do record all these webinars and we get them up onto our YouTube channel within 24 hours of ending this webinar. And so it will be up there as of tomorrow afternoon. And what you can do is just go to YouTube and look for the Texas Homeless Network channel. And we have probably already about 12 or so Bloc Talks already recorded there, but you'll see the one for this date and for this title. Oh, I missed that one. So this is not the 2015 Block Talk, monthly Block Talk. This is 2016, of course. And so just as a reminder, our THN, or Texas Homeless Network, um, provides communities the opportunity to learn how to more effectively serve their homeless populations through exploring successful practices in housing in Texas cities. So this is really our venue to get this out to the masses around the state of Texas, and present and bring you guys different guest speakers that can talk firsthand about the practice and about the housing that they are providing. So as a reminder, this session will be about, we'll have about a 20-minute presentation time and about a 15-minute question and answer time. So and this is so that we use our time and your time in the best possible way. And so we really want to make sure that we capture as much as we can, and then we stay on schedule and we finish by the top of the hour. Missed another one right there, but so of course this is February. We'll be focusing on El Paso, and then next month for March, we already have lined up for the Houston Continuum of Care to talk about some housing practices within their area, their catchment area. So we are very excited about that. So a little bit about Texas Homeless Network. THN is a nonprofit membership-based organization that provides solutions to ending homelessness in Texas communities through education, resources, and advocacy. And so you can definitely find us at thn.org for more information. A couple of the other services that we offer. We have these, of course, monthly block talks and conversations. These happen typically the last Tuesday of every month around 2 p.m. We also, we started some monthly or some bi-monthly SOAR webinars in 2015. We have actually discontinued those for the time being. We're working with our leaders, our community leads, and our trainers and our VISTA members out across the communities now to get those started back up. But for now, we have discontinued those. So we're really focused on just the block talks this specific time. However, for any other trainings that your communities might be interested in, as well as any other updates, feel free to go to our website. You can sign up for any training updates or any kind of legislative updates and such. And then, of course, our address, if you wanted to request any more information via letter, there's our address right there in front of you, as well as our option to be a member of the Texas Homeless Network. Of course, many different things that you get through this membership, which one of them, one of the biggest ones is a discount to our not monthly, but our yearly conference. Our conference this year will be held in San Antonio in the late summer, fall, and so we are looking to have approximately 450 people show up to that. It's going to be a wonderful experience, full of just great workshops on how to provide housing, best practices on housing, as well as more than just housing, but mental health components, education components, many other pieces. And so if you want to be a member, I think that's a good reason to be a member, is to come to our conference. However, just feel free to go back to our website to get more information about the conference that we offer every year. So for this month, what we've done is we have been looking around the state of Texas at areas, at the continuums of care that are around the state, and really trying to highlight some best practices that are happening, and try to bring in those directors and case managers and social workers that can talk about how these housing structures work, sometimes even how they were developed, how they work, and how they work from day to day, so that you guys out there in the as being service providers around the state can take this information, can kind of dive into it or chew on it a little bit and see if a program like this could serve a population that you work with. So for this month, we are looking at the El Paso area, and we have Charm Miser, who is the HCHV coordinator, and we have Jane Liao, who is the Shelter Plus Care social worker for the Veterans Lodge out of El Paso. So Charm and Jane, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys to kind of take it from there. Don't forget to unmute yourself, and you can go ahead and present on your program. And just so everybody knows, we don't have a PowerPoint for today's program, so just listen closely, and feel free, if you have any questions, go ahead and start typing in the questions as they pop in your mind or during the presentation, and we'll make sure we ask those at the appropriate time afterwards. It's all yours, Charm.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Like I said, my name is Charm Miser. I am the homeless coordinator, and I've been with the homeless program now almost 10 years. And my very first job was what they call the SNCMI caseworker, which became the Veterans Lodge, which became Shelter Plus Care. And what this program is at first it was scattered sites. Any veteran that was homeless, that had a mental illness, and needed extra case management was assigned to me as the coordinator. And we provided case management, very intense case management throughout the city. We started negotiations with the Housing Authority, with the COC, and finally found a complex that wanted to become involved in the community, and they gave us 15 apartments. That was about 2008. And since that time now, we've had, like I said, 15 apartments. They're in one complex. They're all in one section of the complex. And at first we were kind of concerned that there might be problems because of just the nature of and kind of the stigma that goes along with mental illness sometimes. But the complex would not agree to this unless they put everybody together. But we're finding now, after years of doing this, that it has worked to our advantage. The veterans that live in the Veterans Lodge are very close. There's support for each other. We find that when we go over, a lot of times they'll be out sitting around the picnic table or visiting. If somebody's sick and doesn't show up for, you know, a day or whatever their pattern is, they actually go and check on them. So it's turned out to be a really wonderful program for our veterans. The only thing that now we're running into with the goal to end homelessness, we're finding that we don't have as many chronic veterans as we used to, chronically homeless. So our census has declined, and we're really struggling to fill it. I think that just kind of gives you an overview of our program. Like I said, it's a grant. It's a COC grant. It involves HUD, the COC, and the VA. And I've got Jane with me, who is actually the caseworker that works with these veterans every day, that can kind of give you a day-to-day, an idea of how things work in this program.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm the social worker. Much of what I do is intensive case management, so I do meet with the veterans at least once weekly, depending on the situation. Sometimes it's several times a week, sometimes it's several times a day. Our focus is to go ahead and assist them with accessing services to attend to their needs, such as their psychiatric and medical needs, assisting with medication compliance, trying to build up skills in order to work towards a higher level of independence. For some veterans, it may be more focused on helping them prevent regression into some of the behaviors that led to their being homeless. And so we work with them in a variety of capacities. And I work in tandem with a nurse, so she assists with addressing some of those medical concerns. And in working this kind of program, there are some situations that may pop up that you may not necessarily be exposed to in an office setting. So this program does help expand your skills for sure.
Okay, thank you, Jane. One of the things that we have found that this grant has enabled us to do is I have a nurse, a full-time nurse, and a full-time social worker that both care for these 15 veterans that are in the program. And because of having that much case management and that many people on that low volume, we're able to provide very intense case management. As soon as even a problem, we even anticipate a problem, we're able to find a solution for it. So veterans that have been on the street for years and years and have not been housed are able to maintain housing with all the support. And over the, we didn't get all of the statistics on how many veterans we've actually run through this program, but just in the last, I'd say in the last year, we've had at least one successful discharge. He came into our program probably about...
He came into our program about a year and a half ago. He is actually from Houston, and he had not been taking his medications. And one day he got in his vehicle and just drove to El Paso until his car broke down in Van Horn. And apparently he had been camping out in his vehicle in Van Horn before he found out that there was a VA in El Paso. And he came to the VA here, entered into emergency shelter services, and then entered into our Veterans Lodge program. And during that time, attended to several of his psychiatric and medical needs. And we're happy to say that for over the past 6 months, he has maintained employment, maintained financial independence, has been able to quit taking such a large amount of medications, and has developed support systems. So he's been doing very well and was successfully discharged just about 3 months ago.
What this Shelter Plus Care program does is allows, like I said, allows us to give a much more intense case management. I don't know if anybody out there is looking to start one or has one that they're already involved in. There are a lot of guidelines for these programs, but we're finding that when we have veterans that fit into this criteria, that they're very successful. They're able to maintain their apartment. We do notice we have a much lower, I'm trying to think of the word, recidivism rate, because they stay in the program for a long time. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. I apologize. I just feel like this program has filled a gap that we didn't have. And that's why anyone that has these kind of programs, the HUD-VASH program is wonderful, but we have found that the veterans that meet the criteria for the Shelter Plus Care program are able to maintain better than if they were in just the HUD-VASH program. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? I just read one of the questions, the maximum length of stay is forever. We've never been given, we have veterans that have been in our program since it started, and as of right now, that we don't anticipate most of them ever leaving, partly because of the mental illness, the ages, just different things going on with them, that they probably would not be able to stay in an apartment on their own.
As far as the exit plans, that really depends on the veteran's level of functioning and what the veteran is working towards. As far as our veteran who was successfully discharged, he was allowed 6 months additional in the program once obtaining employment in order to go ahead and give him that level of assistance to ensure that he is able to maintain that level of independence. He also knows that although he's no longer in the program, we are still available if he needs any extra guidance. So we've still had contact with him. Also, as far as the landlord question, all of our units are at one complex. So the nurse and I work closely with the management at the complex, so it does involve developing relationships with our complex and keeping them apprised of any situations we're concerned about.
That's great. We
I see
have
another.
Yeah, actually, there is another question from Pam. How does the veteran get referred to this program?
We have an intake social worker, and every veteran that comes in that is homeless, she does a screening. She has questions that she asks them, and then she kind of on her own decides which program would best suit this veteran. She makes the referral to the appropriate team, like she would send the information to Jane and the nurse that's on that team. They would then go in and read notes, check diagnosis, and then they would meet with the veteran. And then if they feel that he's appropriate, then we go through the process. We have to go to housing and have them approved. We have to get them approved by the apartment complex, and then they're able to enter our program. But we try to make it pretty smooth, because that's one of the things that we found. We lose a lot of veterans if we don't do a very short transition time.
Great, great. And speaking a little more around that about losing veterans, as far as being able to take in the veterans that are referred to you guys, are y'all able to meet most of the need, or do you still find yourselves scrambling to house veterans?
Okay, we've actually been scrambling. We've had a lot of empty, in fact, several empty apartments for the last year, with so many veterans being housed and housed quickly with SFVF and other community partners. We're finding that, again, the criteria for this program is that they have to be chronically homeless and either have schizophrenia, bipolar, or PTSD. And if they don't meet all of that criteria, then we can't take them into the program. In fact, we're supposed to be meeting with HUD and the COC here in the next few weeks. We're trying to see if we can't expand the criteria a little bit. But yeah, so that has been a problem to get veterans to meet the criteria. I mean, it's a good thing, but it's a bad thing.
No, that makes sense. Okay, we have another question. What is your definition of chronic homelessness?
We use the HUD definition.
Okay,
So
so
saying the four episodes in 3 years, the 1 year, or all of their episodes add up to at least a year. We're using the new definition.
yeah, so yeah, the answer is they're looking at kind of the timing of the episodes. HUD is to meet that that chronic homelessness definition. So if you,
Yeah, we're struggling with that one a little bit, but yes, that's what we're looking at is the total amount of time that they have been homeless.
yeah, and yeah, totally. And for the person that asked the question, if you have any questions about that, you can always go to the HUD website and put in or search for chronic homelessness definition and pull that up. It is quite expansive, but it's just one of those things we're always working to work within. Okay, another question. Are the leases under the client's names?
Yes, and that was, we had them for a while. The apartment complex had changed hands several times, and one of the owners, for a very short time, had decided that our veterans coming into the program had to meet the same guidelines as any other resident, and most of our veterans had criminal history, so they were denying them. So we had to go in and work with the apartment complex. We had to get HUD involved. We had to get the COC involved, and I think actually those owners left after not very long, and we got another set of owners who were much more willing to work with us. So our veterans don't have a background check. They still sign a year's lease.
Yes, it is a legal document, so they are obligated to a 12-month lease. They're all made aware that if they decide to leave the program, that there would be that penalty for the reletting, because this is an actual lease.
Good, and that's great. So yeah,
yes,
so you guys.
Is part of. I'm sorry, sir. This is just part of assisting with the increasing their functioning, because they are responsible for paying their rent monthly.
Yeah, and that makes sense because you're building some rental history for them as well. So that helps
Yes.
out. Okay, another question we have is mental health treatment required in order to be eligible for this housing program?
Yep, that's one whole part. I apologize that I left out. We do what is called matching funds, which means that we have to do medications, doctor's appointments, mental health appointments, even our social worker appointments, all have to match the funds that are put in by the housing authority. So if a veteran, and that's also been one of the kind of the problems, if you have a veteran that has schizophrenia and doesn't believe he has schizophrenia and doesn't want to come in for any type of treatment, then it's very difficult to do matching funds, and a lot of times those veterans end up going into other programs because we have to do the matching funds.
Okay, great. That makes sense. That's good. So if you have any other questions, go ahead and post them now. Those have been some great questions so far. I do have one question. So you said, Charm, you said that you guys are having some difficulty housing that chronically homeless population. Is that right? Is that
But
what I'm?
well, the number of chronic homeless has dropped significantly. We just finished our pit count, and we're even arguing over that. They said we had 10 veterans on the street, and since Jane and I are laughing, most of the teams that went out for the pit count had somebody from the VA on them, and there were just no veterans out there. In fact, homelessness across the city has declined substantially. So we're really trying to, working closer with shelters, with any other community programs to find veterans and to find ones that are chronically homeless. And like I said, the number just keeps declining, which, like I said, is a very good thing, but it's making it more difficult for us to fill these beds. Did you have anybody have any other questions?
Let's see, we have one more question. Does your program accept families?
Unfortunately, this program only accepts single veterans. Can be male or female, but they can only be single.
Okay. Okay, great. So the program is for male, female, single veterans. And I was saying a while ago when I still have my mute button on was that can be a struggle when we've served the population and then we start struggling to keep serving that population because we're doing such a good job. Okay, we have another question.
About the low barriers or high
Yeah.
barriers?
Let's see. I'm looking at this question. So, okay, great. It was just a little bit of feedback somebody was giving us, but yeah, well, wonderful. So keep sending in your questions if you have them for Jane and Charm. But it sounds like you guys are doing a wonderful job there in El Paso. How many total did you say that you guys can house at one time?
We have 15 apartments.
Oh, 15.
And right now we have 9 that are filled and have been filled for some time, and then we have 4 right now that are all in the process of, they're in different stages, like we're waiting on a couple of apartments to be inspected, and a couple of them we're waiting on paperwork.
Awesome.
So hopefully, we're being very hopeful by the end of the month, first week of March, we'll have at least 4 more people in, so that'll put us almost to capacity.
That's great. That's great. And I do have a question around me sending out agency contacts, or so sending out the contact information for Charm and Jane, and I can do that. What actually I will do is you guys will receive a after we're done here, you guys will receive an evaluation, and then later on this afternoon, I will send out an email to everybody with Charm's contact information on it, so that if you guys have any other questions, you can feel free to ask her. And then I have another question. What performance measures or outcomes do you utilize to demonstrate results or the benefit to participants of the program?
Actually, our program, we work with the El Paso Coalition for the Homeless utilizing the HMIS system, and that is where our measures get reported. So we do have to go enter information into the HMIS system. Some of the questions involve are they receiving their treatment services regarding medical and psychiatric conditions? Have they gained any more benefits? So some of the measures are they getting food stamps now? Do they have Medicaid available to them? Have they gotten an increase in their benefits? A lot of the measures are based on how the veterans may be improving and are they remaining stable and housed.
Great, great. So you guys are going through the HMIS programs. That's a wonderful way to capture that information. All right. So you guys keep submitting your questions, and I'm going to keep them on the line for a few more minutes. Sounds like a wonderful program. Yes, ma'am.
Chris, I was going to say, I see a question that said, would you consider Shelter Plus Care to be a low barrier or high barrier program? And I'm like, I'm thinking low barrier because, I mean, we will take them if they're actively using whatever. We go ahead and, again, go by housing first. We house them, and then we do all the wraparound services. But they don't have to be sober to come in. And then on the downside, though, they have to be chronic or have one of the 3 diagnoses.
Great, great. Yeah, that's
yeah.
Great. Yeah, it's definitely a low barrier, and thanks for catching that too over in the chat box. All right, we have another question. So somebody was asking, have any of the clients at the lodge ever been evicted from there?
We just dealt with one.
Yes, we have had one eviction during the time I've been in the program, and this was for a veteran who was refusing to pay rent. And so it was not a question of whether or not the resource was available. It was a matter of he no longer felt like he should have to pay rent. And so after trying to work with him to get him to acknowledge his financial responsibility, it came to the point where he is in the eviction process.
Good, thank you for sharing that. It is tough often when it comes down to having to make those kind of choices when working with clients.
And Chris, also to share in that working with this program, in the past year, we've had some of our veterans who have passed on. And so that's also another level of involvement for the staff.
Oh, very interesting. So do you guys offer other services to the clients when somebody does pass away that has been a resident there? Do you have counselors that you use that type of stuff?
Yes, we speak to all of the residents if any of them are interested in any kind of bereavement or grief counseling. In fact, week before last, we had a long-term resident who passed away, and last week we went ahead and had a group activity for those who felt they would like to participate and did a celebration of life. And that included VA staff, the residents, and even the veteran's family. His sister actually came in from out of town to participate.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. That's awesome. Wonderful. Let's see. Is admittance to your program contingent on the character of the service? So like if it's an honorable discharge or dishonorable discharge or such?
They have to be eligible for VA care, which means it has to be general, under honorable, or honorable. Unfortunately, we can't take OTHs or dishonorable.
Okay.
Also, since this is a housing grant, the Housing Authority does not allow for anyone who has a sexual offender status.
Of course. Okay. Good. Thank you, guys. Any other questions before we move on? Well, okay. So Thank you. So Jane and Charm, thank you so much for being on the webinar with us today and talking about this program. It sounds like you guys are doing a wonderful service out there in El Paso, helping and reaching that population and housing them. So I will make sure for you, all you guys are out there that are listening, that I get you Charm's contact information. So if you have any questions, you can go through her. You will see that that email in a little while after we finish. So so a few things, just kind of finishing up here. Next month, we will be, so the next month in the month of March, which will be the last Tuesday of course, so that should be March, I believe, 29th. We will be talking to the Houston Continuum of Care and about housing providers and housing programs that are in the Houston area. We will pick a program and talk about that. So it might be a youth housing program, it might be a veterans, it could be just general population or families, it could be anything. So please stay tuned for any kind of emails that might come through talking about that webinar for next month. And then finally, just want to give you guys my contact information. So again, Chris at thn.org. And so like as I mentioned, I will send out an email in just a few minutes. You will get something giving Charm's information and her contact information. And so if you have any other questions for me, however, feel free to email me. If you feel like your community is struggling to meet this population and house this population, feel free to contact me and I can put you in contacts with programs around the state that are doing this work and doing it successfully. So really with that, once again, I wanted to thank Charm and Jane for being on the webinar today. And I wanted to remind all you guys that are out there that as soon as I end this webinar, you will receive an evaluation form. Please fill that out so we can get some feedback from you guys so we know who to keep inviting back and who you guys want to hear from. And then finally, I just want to say, you know, have a good beginning of March, a good spring break, and we will see you again on March 29th, and we look forward to hearing from you. So with that, I'm going to sign off, and thank you once more for attending. Y'all have a wonderful day.